Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to TAY, Talk Amongst Yourselves. My name is Tanaka Mundwa, and once again, it's a pleasure to be in your company. Cash is behind the camera. Hey, Cash.
What's up?
Yeah, that's him right there. So, on today's agenda, we'll be talking all things UFC 259, almost exclusively on this show, and I'm quite excited because we're going to bring in sports hype blogger Philani Mukwakwami, who knows a lot about sports as a whole. But today, we're going to particularly probe and pull on his UFC knowledge and ask the relevant questions. It didn't go down the way myself and Cash had predicted last week. But yeah, I guess, you know, when things don't go your way, there is things to talk about, at least. And this is why we've gathered here today. So before we get Philani on the phone line, some honorable mentions. I can't not say these things. First and foremost, congratulations, Manchester United, for beating Manchester City in the derby. Good job. You've done well. Secondly, we must give a big round of applause to Orlando Pirates, but more so Golden Arrows, who are now, with 2 games to spare, only 3 points behind Orlando Pirates in second place. And just like that, a new coach has risen and put his hand up to be one of those bright young things that this season has to offer. So congratulations. Lastly, Barcelona have a new president. Joan Laporta is in, and he's promised to keep Messi at the club. I guess we'll see how that goes. If you remember the first show we ever did, it was about Barcelona and Lionel Messi. And now we're here. The new president has finally arrived. So those are some honorable mentions from this past weekend in sport. We could probably discuss those, in the comment section and beyond. But today, UFC 259. So let's get Philani Mukwakwami on the phone line. Hey, Philani, what's up, man?
You well, brother?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. First and foremost, Philani, your resume is quite impressive. You've actually gone on and started your own sports hype. Just give me in a couple of seconds what that's about, the sports hype blog.
So Sports Hype is it's a blog / website where we encourage sports fans from different sporting codes, different walks of life to actually write up and send us through their work, and we post it for them for free on our site. I also happen to be the chief contributor at the moment, but thank you for having me on this platform, because that grows, and asking that question specifically, that grows who we are, and hopefully we get a lot of submissions from this particular page.
Absolutely, and I alluded to a little bit earlier on when I was introducing you. I could have really spoken to you about anything: baseball, basketball, mixed martial arts, badminton, chess, checkers, all of that stuff, and that information is available on your blog. But today we'll be talking just about the UFC. It was probably one of the most stacked cards ever, right? 3 title fights, and we had the cherry on top of it all is potentially another double champ in the UFC if Israel Adesanya had come over Jan Blachowicz. It ultimately wasn't the case. But let's start right at the beginning, Philani, right? Like right at where all the excitement started, which was Petr Yan up against Aljamain Sterling. First and foremost, Philani, we can both agree that was not a good fight, yes? No? What are your thoughts?
Definitely not as exciting as it should have been. I think credit must go to Aljamain Sterling for forcing the issue and trying to be on the front foot. However, Petr Yan did show also that he's a classy boxer with his 1-2 punch combinations. His jab was very clean. Surprisingly enough, for someone who's known for he's got a master in boxing, but I thought he would also try and challenge Sterling on the game. I guess that's kudos to him. We can't fault Petr Yan for that, because we did see Kamaru Usman do the same with Gilbert Burns, where he was, opting him to say, get back on your feet. Let me show you what I'm made of. So yeah, it was not the most exciting of fights, and the ending was also perplexing, underwhelming, disappointing. I can keep going on and on.
Yeah, I only say a disappointing fight in comparison to the fight that won Petr Yan the championship. That was against Jose Aldo, if you remember that fight, which was one of my favorite fights, certainly, in recent times. This was not that. It wasn't at that level. It almost felt as if Aljamain, for a moment there, looked like a fish out of water, like he had just reached a level a bit beyond himself. But again, the big moment was that knee to the head. Fight gets called off. This is the first time in the UFC that a title has changed hands via DQ. That rule right there, Philani, I know if we use WWE standard rules, it's the title cannot change hands on disqualification. You know how it is. When a fighter's losing, he throws the chair and it's done and he keeps his belt but loses the fight. What are your thoughts? I know there's a lot of people saying the fight should have been stopped or should have been stopped, but the belt should have remained with Piotr Jan and a rematch probably should have happened as opposed to the situation we have now.
Well, my stance hasn't changed. We spoke about this Monday morning where I said, you know what, in what sport does a disqualified athlete still get to keep not only their title but keep their spot? If let's say if that's a Premier League log or something of that matter. If a team was in first place, if you go back to Juventus, and I'm not saying Peter Jan's mistake or he's cheating to that standard, but Juventus were severely punished. They lost all those titles for the time that they were deemed to have been breaking conduct. So, for me, it's justifiable. I know Joe Rogan, he's more experienced in the mixed martial arts game than I am, and I beg to differ with him on that. There's no way that he should have been keeping that title. Let the title change hands if someone does something illegally. Yeah.
Now, so this was the moment, right? After the fight. Also, it's crazy for me, ludicrous that they leave that up to the athlete whether or not he wants to continue, because I think pride and bravado will kick in at some stage. But they leave it to Aljamain. He can't get up. They ultimately call off the fight. He gets the belt. He throws the belt down in the ring. He goes to the post-fight interview, which I thought was crazy. But he's like, that's not how he wanted to win. And that's the truth. There ultimately are no winners in this scenario. Piotr Jan is a loser, and Aljamain Sterling will, as long as he doesn't beat Piotr Jan, be that champion who never really won the title. I guess my next question for you has more to do with Aljamain Sterling's conduct after that fight. So after all of this happens, it's all summed up, it's done. Now we start to see pictures of Aljo online with the belts, with his friends, celebrating, popping champagne, tweeting a whole bunch, which is a contrast to the Aljamain Sterling we saw post-fight. And a lot of people have taken issue with this, and myself included, because for me, it's like, you didn't really win the belt. If anything, I applauded him for not being able to fight, because really he couldn't, leaving the belts in the ring as a gesture to say that this is not really the title that I want or the circumstances under which I wanted to have won the title. But then afterwards to be posing and posting pictures with the homies and celebrating and posting with Henry Cejudo talking about that's the next fight I want, for me, Philani, and I want your thoughts. It's ridiculous.
Well, I'll break it down into two ways.
Yeah.
Is his post-fight reaction a bit disappointing? Probably, I can give you that. Is his reaction justifiable? Totally. And this is what I'm going to say to you. Do you think that the people who got gold medals after Marion Jones and Lance Armstrong were stripped were not celebrating? Shouldn't they have celebrated as well?
Sure. Okay.
Right? So that's my first initial reaction. For the first time, you seem like you're a bit stumped. But that's my initial reaction to this. Should this man not celebrate, his success? He is the champion right now. Okay, let's put aside the fact that it didn't go the way that he wanted to plan. I take exception to the fact that now he wants Henry Cejudo and not a rematch. But still, at the same time, the Henry Cejudo fight, it's not like he's calling for some bum. It's not like he's saying, I want to fight the number 15 guy or the number 5th ranked guy.
No, but Henry's retired, Philani. He's retired.
So it's still, he is retired, but it's still a challenging fight. But still, I take exception to that. I still want him to face Piotr Jan. I hope Dana White is going to make it happen. That fight needs to, that's one of the fights that I've seen in the last 3 years in the UFC where you can look at it and say, run this back, all right? Okay, and there haven't been many. I think the last one that I saw like that was Davison Figueiredo, his past fight with the Mexican warrior in December. So for me, run that back. I'll just shouldn't be saying that, but I do not buy I won't say the hate, but the criticism that is receiving. If you have worked so hard to get to a certain destination and you get to that place, let's say for example you've been playing lotto, hoping that one day you win, and then
like my current example,
winning. You have all the packs that come with it. Probably it's in bad taste because of the way the title was won. You got me there. But I'm just saying, the people who won medals and trophies when Marion Jones and Lance Armstrong were disqualified or were stripped of their titles, shouldn't they have celebrated? Would we be saying the same thing as well?
Okay, I would say different.
It's not, I know it's differently, he didn't dope or whatever, but he lost it because he was disqualified, he was stripped. So should this man not, smell the roses?
Yeah, I'll say different set of circumstances, but you're right. For the sake of time, Philani, I won't really indulge you too much on that one, but I can see your point. I still feel like there was ways to celebrate the fight, as it were, and not put the belts in our faces like you pulled off a massive coup. That's all I'm saying. I think he could have still celebrated his victory, but we didn't have to be in our faces about it the way he was. All right, let's park that, Philani. We are quickly running out of time. As shortly as as brief rather, this conversation has been. So, Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling, that fight was unfortunate, but they're definitely going to run it back. I think Dana White confirmed that in the post-fight interviews. We can talk about Amanda Nunes and Megan Anderson, but really, we would be wasting time. And by no disrespect to Amanda Nunes, I think now we're all able to say when we put or talk about the greatest female athletes of all time, we have to talk about Amanda Nunes, Bridget Kosgei. Help me with some names here. There's Simone Biles, there's Serena Williams. When we talk about those people, now we have to talk about Amanda Nunes. I think it's as simple as that. She is one of the greatest female athletes of all time, and her body of work in the UFC across gender may make her arguably the greatest athlete in the UFC ever if she continues in this way, and it seems like she will. The woman to beat her maybe is Valentina Shevchenko, but outside of that, there are no real possibilities, Philani. Real quick, in 20 seconds, is there a fight outside of Shevchenko that you see for her, or is it back to 135? And
if it's not Shevchenko, it ain't happening. And with Shevchenko, she was also on the pre-fight show that was being hosted by DC. Michael Chiesa was there, and two other UFC presenters. I'm not sure if you watched it, and they did speak to Valentina, and they did allude to that fight, and she didn't look like she wanted to change weight classes, and Amanda Nunes is not going to cut that much weight as well. So we might have to wait. Dana White would have to make it. He's the promoter extraordinaire at this point. Greatest, talk about the greatest female fighter, greatest promoter in fighting sports. Dana White, he can make something happen if both women are willing to compromise. Because there'll be massive compromise.
I know people are talking about a catch weight, but how often do fights happen at a catch weight? Just because, especially at that level, it would be strange if Dana White's ultimately agreed to that. The only way this happens is Shevchenko comes up.
Poirier and Conor McGregor are supposed to be at a catch weight if they fought for charity. And that was one of the first things that was posed to Dana White. Would you make this fight at a catch weight? That fight was not for a title, and he said no. So I doubt he would. But listen, organization in disrepute.
Yeah, all respects to Amanda Nunes. I mean, she's definitely. I mean, I couldn't say enough words about her. I really don't have the dictionary to describe just how great she is. The fact that we saw that fight, and at no point did anybody in any moment think she was in any real danger. It's a testament to just the level that she's risen at, even in a weight class which she wasn't initially competing at. That Chris Cyborg fight was meant to be a one-off because she was meant to lose that fight if everything that we believed was true was materialized on that day. So the big one is Israel Adesanya up against Jan Blachowicz. Anytime Israel Adesanya fights Philani, it seems like it gets so much more attention locally. Like I got so many people hitting me up about the fight after that I haven't spoken to about UFC in eons. Like, oh, what happened to Israel Adesanya? What happened? And it was chaotic. But for me, Philani, it was disappointment. Obviously, I had bet on Israel Adesanya becoming a champ. It goes to show that feat of winning 2 titles across 2 weight divisions is no small thing. It's not a small venture at all. I think we've kind of taken it for granted now because we've had 3 or 4 different athletes pull off that feat. Four. Conor, Nunes, Henry Cejudo being there still a surprise.
Not out to Amanda Nunes because of all 4, she's the
only one defending it. But this is the thing, Philani. I really thought if Israel Adesanya had beat Jan, he would have had an equal chance of defending both belts. I just thought that looking at what was left in the lightweight division was Glover Teixeira, there was Anthony Smith, there's Thiago Santos. Yeah, I really thought he could get the best of all those guys. So I thought he could be the second to defend. Yeah,
it's quickly becoming one of the worst divisions. You know, when we thought the gentleman's bantamweight division must be done
the flyweight division.
Sorry, flyweight must be done away with. Yeah. There's a new contender for that title.
Unless John Jones comes back and then things change.
But even if it does, after Jan versus John, if it's not a competitive fight, would you book that back?
Yeah,
to run it back?
it's a good question. Okay. Let's unpack Israel Adesanya. Let's unpack Israel Adesanya. I mean, the division is a wash, but Izzy loses that fight, and now the question is, what happens to his stock? Is Israel Adesanya still the massive draw that he was before the fight? He's going back to 185. What does he do there? It seems like it's only a list of people that he's already beat, bar maybe Darren Till, but there aren't too many exciting fights that jump off the page, to me at least. What are your thoughts about what happens to Israel Adesanya now that he's lost his first fight in the UFC?
I mean, he was a shadow of himself. He was style, but not with the bender.
Yeah.
Or favorably the bender without the style. But he wasn't his complete self. Yes, he was going in there doing a great job of striking with Jan, and you could see Blachowicz was expecting the little power that Adesanya had. And in my book, I think Blachowicz calculated and said, you know what, this guy's punches could be stinging me, but he can't drop me. And that's what was confidence in Jan, and he kept on coming forward, pushing the conversation, making it a fight, and you saw what it did. I think before the first takedown, definitely Adesanya was going to be champ. But yeah, I think the weight issue was a bit too light for Jan. I've never seen a takedown, in the light heavyweight division in that manner. Not even when Glover Teixeira was beating up on Thiago Santos and Alex Smith. Did he manage to just, I don't know what to put it, rugby dumped them. Just pick them up on the ground, let them flat on the bottom, and just ground and pound them there. I think the second takedown in the fifth round was very worrying for me. Even the fourth one, the first one in the fourth round, when you watch it back, you see Israel Adesanya's eyes are closed, like he's sleeping. While he wasn't taking too much punishment. We have to put that in perspective. It was more of a control game. There was no real ground and pound where you say, "Oh my goodness, Jan, you're killing this man." You're never going to win 5 PKO that way. But he was gassed, he was tired, and Jan was so heavy and he was leaning on him. It didn't look like he's been there carrying someone who's 205 pounds, lying flat on top of him. So
yeah, it's very different. Kickboxing and UFC, very different, very, very different. I know people are saying he's done it in kickboxing before, gone all the way to heavyweight, but again, it's no one's taking you down there, so it's not the same thing at all. And I think ultimately that's where the question was going inside fights. If Jan were to use his wrestling, would he just be too big, too heavy for Adesanya to get up? And that proved telling in that particular fight. What fight do you make at 185, Philani? We're out of time, but I just want you to play matchmaker for a bit. What fight do you make for Israel Adesanya in return to 185? Because Dana White has said he should probably focus there. Remember when Max Holloway dared to be great and go up to lightweights, and then he got blasted by Dustin Poirier? I think the same sentiments were there. Maybe not. Maybe just be great at featherweight. And Max Holloway, to some extent, despite losing his bout, has done that. But what do you do for Israel Adesanya?
Well, I think it was a bit shocking to hear Dana White say that. I think Dana White has a lot of love for Israel Adesanya. He's also a businessman, so he knows that this is his next biggest money maker. I mean, outside of Conor, there's Khabib, but how many people can actually come out and say we're going to carry this thing? And of all the people that I've mentioned, no one carries the UFC with swagger the way Adesanya did. Adesanya does when he fights very, very well for himself. And what you're saying, there's a lot of local interest. Some guys that never watch UFC on my page were actually coming up to me and saying, is it worth it to watch this Nigerian superstar do it? I was like, you know what? This is the best fight where any UFC beginner can watch. Watching Israel Adesanya's fight, but unfortunately it didn't show itself on the day. Matchmaker, I'm probably just the mundane is going to happen here. Wait for Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa fight, and then they fight him. But Easy likes to fight 3-4 times a year. I don't think he took too much damage. You could probably challenge Jared Cannonier before just a little bit after the Whittaker Paulo Costa fight, and then fight another time in December. He loves being active, so it's out there. But one of those two has to get it. I'm a big Cannonier fan. Just that he was so humbled by Robert Whittaker. I thought he would win that match. But there's nothing exciting at middleweight.
That's the thing.
Especially if it does wins between Whittaker and Paulo Costa.
Yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. I mean, the question there with Whittaker and Paulo Costa, does Whittaker want it? He said, the title doesn't mean a lot to him. And can Paulo Costa hold his drinking habit? And I suppose time will tell. If either of them were to win that fight and become the new number one contender and next in line for Israel Adesanya to defend. But Philani, thanks, man. As usual, appreciate your time, my brother. You are a good sport, and we'll definitely be going over to the Sports Hype blog to read more and check out more of your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Paulo Costa Whittaker was booked, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm aware.
is it 261?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one, but
Yeah,
I guess
it has to happen. Let's see. Maybe we'll get a motivated Paulo Costa would have managed to sleep the night before his biggest fight of his career.
I guess we'll find out, man. Listen, cheers. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you for your time, sir.
All right.
And having me.
Cheerio. Well, that's my guy, Philani, talking all things UFC. That's our thoughts, at least, for what was the calamity in my books at UFC 259. You get in the comment sections, talk amongst yourselves, and let me know. Cheers.